Are you as pumped for this weekend as I am? With the Big 10 and Big 12 championships both happening this weekend, there's going to be some amazing wrestling. But what are the most anticipated matches that you need to be watching out for? Let's stop stalling and start talking wrestling. What's going on, wrestling fans? My name's Josiah, and welcome to Fanco Wrestling, because we are right back here on the channel. And I know that there's been a little bit of time off from videos, and if you're looking for more of an explanation about that, I will have that explanation at the end of this video. But I want to get into the Big 10 and Big 12 championships, because there are going to be some incredible matches this weekend, just before the NCAA championships. It's almost a primer for it. So Big 10s are happening. They start this Saturday at 10 a.m. The semis will be Saturday at 7:30 p.m. I will definitely be in front of my TV watching those. And the finals are Sunday at 4 p.m. So make sure you're watching out for that. Big 12s, meanwhile, are on ESPN Plus, which starts Saturday at noon. The finals are Sunday at 6 p.m. And there are going to be fans allowed into that event, so that's pretty awesome. By the way, you can watch the Big 10 championships on the Big 10 network for the first time. Every single round is being broadcast. I mean, this is huge. So first, let's get into a couple of honorable mentions before we get into the Fanco 5 most anticipated matchups. That's right, this is a Fanco 5 video that I am returning with. So the honorable mentions, one is at 285 in the Big 10s. Mason Parris versus Gable Steveson. So this is going to be an exciting matchup. I don't have it in the Fanco 5, which may be crazy to you, but there are a couple other storylines and matches that I'm just looking a little bit more forward to. The other thing in heavyweight there is, can Greg Kirkfleet pull out any sort of win at that weight? How is he going to do this weekend as the freshman? Just a little bit of a primer there. Interesting to look at. Caleb Young and Brayton Lee should be another interesting match. Who's going to get the edge there? And then in the Big 12s, Ian Parker versus Dom Demas. Those two have a vast history. Parker has the last two wins, so I'd definitely be watching out for that. But let's get into the actual Fanco 5 that you should be watching out for. And the first here is RBY and Austin DeSanto. Number 1 seed, Roman Bravo Young of Penn State, and number 2 seed, Austin DeSanto of Iowa. The reason I have this at number 5 is because I am still super psyched to watch this match happen. But it's we've seen this match happen a couple of different times, so there are just a couple other matches and matchups that I'm looking a little bit more forward to. But the other thing I do want to mention here that is pretty unfortunate is at this weight, at 133, Sammy Alvarez of Rutgers has pulled out of the tournament, will not be competing at the Big Tens or at the NCAA championships. Rutgers put out a statement on Twitter, not sure exactly why he's going to be out, but very, very unfortunate that this is going to be happening. Rutgers has had a rough year here and there with some of the things going on with match canceled and now guys pulling out, so that is a shame. He was going to likely wrestle Austin DeSanto in the semifinals, which I was looking forward to that, but DeSanto's pace has been, I mean, everybody knows DeSanto for his incredible pace, but he's just been scoring points all season long, tech fall after tech fall. Love watching that. 100% bonus point percentage. Is RBY going to be able to match that? Now, we know that RBY has 2 wins over Austin DeSanto last year. One of them was an injury default. Okay, so whatever, you know, I know that there's a lot of controversy around that, but he did beat him at the Big Ten championships, although it was by a tight score. The thing with RBY, I mean, he is just such a creative wrestler. He's able to roll around, score in so many different positions. But the thing that I'd be watching out for is just watching him not get too funky. Sometimes he can get a little bit too funky and a little bit crazy, and that could harm him with a guy like Austin DeSanto, who will definitely be looking out for that from Roman Bravo Young. Now, DeSanto has beat RBY in the past, and because they've wrestled so much, that's why I have it at the number 5 spot. Who I have it in the number 4 spot, though, is in the Big 12. At 149, Boo Llewellyn of Okie State could be wrestling Andrew Alvarez of Northern Colorado in the finals if they end up matching their seeds with where they place. So Boo will have to go through Tristan Laura of Northern Iowa and Jarrett Deegan of Iowa State. Likely either of those guys he's going to have to wrestle to get into the finals, and neither of them are anybody to overlook. So Boo is the returning Big 12 champ and is seeking, I believe, his 3rd title. He's the reigning Big 12 champion. Between a couple of these guys, you know, Laura pinned Deegan in the duel. lost to Llewellyn 14-8. So Llewellyn does have that win over him. Deegan is somebody who's had a couple rough spots this season, but there are a couple interesting storylines here between Llewellyn and Alvarez. And I'll get to Alvarez in just a second, but with Boo, the interesting thing here is that this is Boo's last year. So although we know that this is the free year and many wrestlers may be returning for the 7th year, I've said it once and I'll say it again, and it reigns true here. Boo has decided not to return for his 7th year of eligibility, mostly because what he says, this is from a Flow Wrestling interview where he says, I just don't want to go back to class anymore. I'm happy with where my career is at, and if anything were to happen, it would be okay with me. I'm saying that, like, if anything were to happen with the Big 12 championships or with the NCAA championships, he'd be okay with that. And that's just a huge, mature statement to be making. But I'll be watching out for Boo Llewellyn and if he can get his next title against a guy like Andrew Alvarez, who is undefeated on the season, a young guy, and has made leaps since last season of Northern Colorado. He had a good record last year. He's 24-4. Great record. 2 losses to Deegan at the Big 12 Championship. So half of his losses came at the Big 12 Championships to the same guy. He lost to Llewellyn in last year's duel. So the question is going to be if he can beat him this year. And why am I saying he made leaps? I mean, he won the senior nationals in the offseason, right before the season started, in a bracket, in 65-kilogram bracket with Joey McKenna, Yaya Thomas, Jaden Ironman, Kolodzik, and Storr. And there is a difference between, freestyle and folk style, and not necessarily a huge correlation because of the different styles. We've seen that happen time and time again. But Andrew Alvarez, this may be his big time, to really show off. If he can beat a guy like Boo Llewellyn, if he can get into the finals even of the Big 12 championships, would be impressive and a start for him to do something special at nationals. And the other weight that I'm really looking forward to at Big 12 is my number 3 on the Fanco 5 this week, Tanner Sloan, the sophomore, going up against either Noah Adams or Buchanan in the finals. And actually, it's not just a guarantee that Tanner Sloan gets in there, although he is undefeated. Tanner Sloan of South Dakota State. He could be wrestling either AJ Ferrari or Jake Woodley in the semifinals. Now, Ferrari and Woodley have actually wrestled this season, and Sloan has actually wrestled Woodley this season. He has a win over Woodley, but he's never wrestled Ferrari. Tanner Sloan is one of the remaining undefeated guys on the year. I mean, this weight at 197 is one of the toughest weights out of any conference championship, in my opinion. There's just been so much excitement happening here at each of these weights. So Noah Adams is the other guy here who is a returning Big 12 champion. However, the thing about him is he has 2 losses this season to Stephen Buchanan of Wyoming. Now, Buchanan has 2 losses of his own, one of them coming to Rocky Elam, the other Cordell Norfleet, the same day that he actually beat Noah Adams. He ended up losing to Cordell Norfleet, ended up getting pinned by him, which was kind of a crazy that happened. But he has the wins over Noah Adams, so I'm anticipating that match for sure in the semifinals that I'm looking forward to see happen. And the thing overall with all these guys, with Sloan, Adams, Buchanan, Ferrari, everybody who has wrestled at 197 in the Big 12s, almost all these matches were within a point or two, showing that any of these guys could win this weekend. And there are only 4 qualifying spots for the national tournament. So this is going to be a bloodbath between all of these guys to get those qualifying spots. Could one of them earn a wild card? Likely could happen, but it's going to be crazy. Number two, Michael Kemmer versus Carter Sirachi or Mikey Labriola. And is it a guarantee that Michael Kemmer gets into the finals? No, because he could be wrestling against Logan Massa in the semi. So first of all, let's look at Carter Sirachi and Labriola. Labriola, the number 2 seed, Sirachi, the number 3 seed. Sirachi has just been pulling off tiebreaker wins all year. Actually, just the last couple of weeks, honestly. But he beat Romero and Massa, which you see in this picture right here. He beat Massa in a great overtime victory match, able to get some back points there. But we could see Sirachi and Romero again in the quarters which would also be a big match. And that's what I'm saying, like, at this weight at 174, it's not guaranteed that Sriracha is just going to make the finals. You know, just because he beat him once doesn't mean it's going to happen again. Now, could he be able to make the adjustments that he needs to just really have a convincing win again? Yeah, that could happen. But let's look for this. People are counting out Labriola at 74. Don't know why, but he's undefeated on the season. I guess it's because Nebraska didn't really wrestle anybody. They didn't wrestle in Michigan or Penn State or Ohio State, so Labriola doesn't have those wins. But let's not forget from last year, whenever Michael Kemmer and Labriola wrestled, and it came down to a takedown in the third period. Now, Kemmer was able to get that takedown, but it could go the other way this time. We'll see. He just didn't wrestle, although Nebraska and Iowa wrestled in the duel, he didn't wrestle against Kemmer. Iowa actually sent out Patrick Kennedy for whatever reason. Like I said, I don't think Kemmer was running during that duel. He had something else going on in behind the scenes, but Labriola is already an All-American, a veteran wrestler, and that's why the thing, Sriracha's a young guy who doesn't really, he had that loss to Donnell Washington at the beginning of the season, although, there were some things that he was taught to his back early on, but Labriola just doesn't have those losses. He doesn't lose to a Donnell Washington. He beat him 13-7, and Washington is definitely somebody to look out for this weekend as well at the weight. But with Kemmer, who's actually seeking his first Big Ten title, he's lost in the past to, last year he lost to Mark Hall, though he beat him in the duel, he lost to him in the Big Ten championships. He had lost to Jason Nolf, who's kind of been a heel on his side the whole time these last couple of seasons until he bumped up. And the crazy thing here is if Massa and Kemmer wrestle, I mean, we, as wrestling fans, never thought we would see that match. First of all, Kemmer's at 157. Massa was at 165. Now we're seeing them wrestle at 174 and could be in the Big Ten semis together. That's going to be awesome. Both of these guys are such powerful wrestlers. It's going to come down to a takedown. It's not good. It's going to be a close match, I can tell you that. And what matchup am I most anticipating this week? And which matchup should you be looking out for? Well, the number one here is Jaden Ironman going up against Sebastian Rivera or Nick Lee. I don't know what's going to happen here at 141 because none of these guys have wrestled this season. None of these guys have recently wrestled. So what could happen? Ironman got the number 1 seed, Nick Lee number 2 seed, and Sebastian Rivera the number 3 seed, which is where I believe the seed should be. At the number 4 seed is Chad Red, who could be wrestling Ironman in the semis. And those guys have actually wrestled early in the season where Ironman has a convincing 8-4 victory over the 4 seed Red. Now, with these guys, the other thing that I do want to note is, okay, Ironman's has won the MAC before during his time at Mizzou. Nick Lee is actually seeking his first Big Ten title, and Sebastian Rivera has never won the Big Ten at 141. He's won at 125 where he beat Spencer Lee, and he won at 133 when he beat Roman Bravo Young last year. And that's part of the thing here too is Nick Lee is going to be looking out for revenge from his buddy Roman Bravo Young. Now, one thing I do want to note is Sebastian Rivera hasn't wrestled since January 31st. He hasn't had much competition this season at Rutgers. It's been kind of unfortunate for Rivera and for Rutgers just due to everything going on this season. But both these guys are pretty technical wrestlers. Rivera will be looking to pull out something probably a little bit funky, but Nick Lee has an 83% bonus point percentage this season. No crazy wins, but he's just a technically superior wrestler. Is it going to be enough to beat a Sebastian Rivera who always seems to pull out some of these crazy wins when it matters? And whoever wins will likely have Jaden Ironman in the finals unless Chad Red can pull something off there. So let me know which matches you're most looking forward to. Now, I promised that I would let you know where I've been this past week. I actually have a full video explaining that right here. You can click that video. It'll take you to my full explanation to where I've been the past week. I know there's just been outpouring support for me as I've been gone this past week, and I thank you for that, but I cannot wait to cover the rest of the postseason because Fanco Wrestling is back.